every single company that establishes its entity here matters for us.
Emerged as and became very rich. They didn't do it off the back
Mm.
of natural resources. They created important hubs.
A citizen is also an entrepreneur in a lot of cases. Where we are moving to is very much, again, that people would like to have a freedom.
Regulation's there for a reason. It's not inherently bad or good. It's there to protect people from any actions that individuals or companies might be taking in the world. All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of Startup Talks. And I have the great pleasure of welcoming Anett Numa of Accelerate Estonia. And I had the pleasure to meet her and some members of her team last week, or maybe it was the week before. And I was really surprised because we talked about something that doesn't usually come up when we discuss innovation. It's at the national level. And as you guys may or may not know, Estonia, well, it's been in my sights for a long time as a very innovative country with their E-citizenship, which I hope we'll talk about more on this podcast. But now they've got a program called Accelerate Estonia, and Anett is really driving that. So looking forward to hear more on that. Anett, welcome on the show.
And thanks for having me here today. I'm so happy to talk to you today as well.
So tell us, before we just jump into the program and what Estonia is doing to be innovative, tell us a bit more about yourself and how you got here.
I think it's always like the most difficult question when people ask you, okay, tell me something about yourself, and you're like, you don't know anything anymore, who you are or like what you're up to. I've been working in the last, I would say, 6 years in the governmental sector. And always been a massive fan of technology and just, again, how to make like public services more accessible for people by using technology. And as we all know, Estonia has been thriving in that sector for many, many years already, and started like introducing the first government services online already the past, like, I would say 24 years or so. And I was always passionate about this. So I was working as a spokesperson for Estonian government in terms of introducing what Estonia has been up to, and also advising like different other governments around the world. And then I also worked on the cyber security issues, so it's the cyber defense part from the Ministry of Defense. And now I would say back like 9 months ago, I joined Accelerate Estonia with a mission of really also doing a little bit better change when it comes to collaborating between public and private sector, and really helping companies to drive their innovation that is blocked by the legal obstacles. So that's kind of my background. And in academia, I'm actually political scientist. And based on international relations, and have my degree in French politics. So I'm actually specialized in that side, but yeah, I have lived and studied abroad in plenty of different countries. But the reason why I'm back here in Estonia is because that we do things easier, and it's also very simple to just live here, because the ecosystem itself is very kind of pleasant when it comes to driving innovation and then coming up with new ideas, and there is a lot of support coming from the governmental sector. So I'm really running this kind of governmental mission, I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. You must get excited to wake up every day and work on this, right? It's a nice project, and I wonder, how does a country like Estonia develop its culture for innovation in the first place? I mean, this is probably an area where a lot of countries around the world are lacking. So I think innovation starts first and foremost with a culture of innovation, like an entrepreneurial sense in itself. So I was just wondering if you could speak on that. Where does Estonia get it?
I think I always have said that, like, if you want to understand why a specific country acts a specific way, you also have to understand their history, their background, where they come from. And Estonia was occupied for 50 years. We were under the, like, kind of a country that we never wanted to be part of, and under the regime that we never wanted to be part of. So if you have been controlled by a regime that really blocks a lot of things, that like what you want to do, keeping your traditions, and then especially also education and everything, and you've been trying to, just kind of keep that down somewhere, it is very difficult for a nation in that way. So when Estonia regained its independence, of course, also thinking about how small we are by the size of like population, having just 1.3 million people, and also knowing that we don't really have natural resources as many other countries do. So we kind of realized since the very beginning of the days that the only kind of resources we have, if you could call them also resources, are actually our brains. And when it comes to the brains, it's about like really using the knowledge and the kind of motivation and ideas coming from our people. And since the very early days already, we knew that if we want to survive, we need to do things differently than some of the other countries are doing today. So if we're going to go and follow what the other countries have been doing for like many years, we're gonna have a lot of difficulties with like I would say especially economically side, but also it just again keep the state running, because for a small state it's very difficult to also manage your budget when it comes to providing I would say like services to your citizens. So I would say using technology was kind of the only option that we had, and we really wanted to stand out when it comes to also other nations. And from the very early days already, we discovered that digitalization actually helped us to get rid of a lot of problems that we were facing, such as transparency, trust, budget problems regarding resources, and then of course also because Estonia is not small by we're small by population size, but not by the just if you think about the land, then it's actually okay. And if you travel around here in Estonia, there is a lot of people who live in a countryside where there is 20, like in the next 20 kilometers, there is not a single house even nearby, which means that also these people will usually have to travel big distances to get access to public services. And that was kind of like a point where we realized that we want to make it more easier for them. And that's why, again, technology came along. But I would say this kind of very innovative mindset has always been there, and just again thinking outside of the box. And actually, our current prime minister also suggested the other countries that if you really want to be successful as a state, that you would very much recommend to think as a startup. And I think we have always had this kind of mindset that a country that has a startup mindset as a government side, and I think this is the key why we're talking to you
Brilliant.
today as well. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. It reminds me of that quote. I forget who it's from, but necessity is the mother of invention. And oftentimes, right, we invent when we are severely resource and time and, you're constrained on many vectors. And so the only way out of that, if you want to move forward, is to create, to invent, to be innovative. And you're basically saying that that same principle applies for countries in the case of Estonia. And other countries come to mind, actually, when you say it like that, not having a large resource base to depend on. Singapore comes to mind, and Hong Kong. These city states that kind of emerged and became very rich. They didn't do it off the back of natural resources. They created important hubs. And I can see Estonia becoming, a significant hub in the next years, especially with these innovative programs. And yes, we'll talk about Accelerate Estonia, but before that, I'd love to learn more about the e-citizenship or the e-residency program, because that's been out for a while. And what is the objective of that? And, what have the results been in the last few years?
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to running business, I think Estonia has always had a mindset that where business is easy, business will grow. That's how simple it is. When it comes to different kind of companies, I think it's just like we have so much of a kind of a location independent way of doing your business, so that you're going to go somewhere where people or the government does not ask you to hustle too much of reporting and doing all your declarations and everything. You're looking for an environment that it's actually very easy to operate, and this is something that we've been building here, but also we want to offer to the rest of the world. And once again, I'm going to go back to the the population size here, so that when we come from a very small population size, every single company that establishes its entity here matters for us. And that's why we want to make sure that the environment where they're operating is so appealing so that they want to actually stay here. And that's why also we created the residency, knowing that if there is a lot of companies and startups, and Estonia currently has the largest amount of unicorns per capita in Europe, which already shows a lot of things as well, that it's so easy to run your business here, to register a business, to open a bank account, do all of your declarations. And then in order to provide this solution to also other countries or other, I would say, entrepreneurs, we created a solution called e-residency, so that anybody across the world can apply for the e-residency, pick up their e-residency card from the Estonian embassy, and run their business like actually wherever you are in the world by using the Estonian ecosystem, and a system that actually
Brilliant.
functions, and it's also very smooth. And currently we already have more than 100,000 people that have applied for this solution. And the numbers are increasing all the time as well. And of course, as Estonia is part of the EU, that automatically means that if you run your business here, like not even physically here, but actually like just from the distance that your business has been registered here, then also this kind of opens you the door to the European market as well. And when it comes to Europe, as being part of Europe, we don't sign additional like contracts or deals when you want to do business across the EU. So we're also providing Estonia, I would say, as a platform for like running your
Wow.
business in the EU level. So that's something that
It's
is
like a launch
uh,
pad. Sorry, it's
yeah.
like a launch pad into the EU. From one country, you get access to essentially do business in all of the ones that are part of that system. So I think that's brilliant.
Exactly, and besides this, also you actually get like the with the resident card, you also get your signature, and an Estonian signature is also already approved, also on a EU level, so that you can sign your contracts if you have your entities in different EU countries. Then you can also use the signature and do your stuff there. So again, that you don't have to send your papers from country to country, but it really allows you to do everything from like, from your computer, basically, wherever you open this computer, because that's what we don't care about. And I think people want this freedom to be able to, I don't know, when it's cold outside, it's very cold in Canada as well. Like, this is what we have in common. Like, you can also have like minus 20 degrees in the winter. And I'm like, I hate this weather. Like, I want to get out of here. And
Let's go
then
down
for
south.
like business, yeah. But like, then to business people, like, if you don't like that time here, like you can easily fly all the way to Sri Lanka and run your business from there if you want to. Because again, like doing all of your declarations and reports and everything, I mean, we don't care where you open your computer. And I see more and more and more entrepreneurs really, really liking that kind of mindset, so that they are
Okay.
provided like much more of a freedom in a way.
Right. Yeah. And like I get it. Major benefit is work, like basically operate your business from anywhere. Basically have a launch, like a landing, sorry, a launch pad into the EU. But let's get a little bit nuanced. Like, what does it not allow you to do? For example, if I become an e-citizen, which I fully intend on becoming, by the way, um, can I go to Estonia anytime I want and get an apartment there? Like, what are the limitations of this e-residency?
Mhm.
And yeah, where does it stop?
So of course, when it comes to all the security aspects there, first of all, like in order to get the card, like I said, you need to go to the embassy, leave your fingerprint so that we actually see that you are existing. Because of course, our security aspect is like very essential there. It is not a travel card, so it's not equal to our identity card. So this is kind of just provide you an opportunity to run your business,
Got it.
by that it's like registered here. But if you go to the airport and you're like, here's my residency card, there is not
It doesn't
even a
pass.
photo of you there, so you can't, like, they're gonna tell
Okay.
you like, sorry, we can't let you do board.
Got it.
So of course it's not a visa, it's not a travel document, it's just a document that allows you to do business. But of course, again, we have a lot of different also programs like startup visa, and in order to get the visa to live here, it's way easier if you already have any residency card, and we have done your background check, and you already have like existing company, then of course, I mean, it's very simple to, just come all the way here and run your stuff here. But
Got it.
definitely we can't say that it's somehow equal to any kind of legal documents, because again, when it comes to documents, very simple, it has to have a photo of you, and this document does not have a photo of you there. So
Got it.
so that's why we can't really equal there. But of course, if you move here, if you get again accepted to live here, then this card still provides you, like I said, the signature. So that automatically means that if you rent an apartment here, then you can also sign your rental agreement with the signature, and then besides this as well, if you actually decide to move here, then we give you already an identity card, not it's a permanent residency card, which is equal to our identity card in terms of using this also for a lot of things to operate here.
Okay, very cool. And you said something earlier that I want to double click on, that I want to focus on, that it's very easy to access government services online in Estonia. And this is my experience, but I know it's the experience of a lot of Canadians, that it's sometimes hard to do to interface with various government agencies. If you want to get your passport, I got mine renewed last year. It was a process. There was a lot of driving involved. There was having to come back because I didn't have the right documentation. So a lot of time wasted. Whenever I deal with my driver's license and things of this nature, it is like pulling teeth. It's very, there's a lot of friction, but it seems to me like Estonia has found a way to eliminate a lot of those frictions. My question is, if this is possible, why don't other countries adopt it? And is that something that you guys are trying to do, kind of show what are best practices, how you can maintain, on one hand, security while providing excellent customer experience for citizens?
Mm-hmm. A lot of countries are actually very much following the Estonian model and are really, really also quickly trying to adopt a lot of things that we have done before. So I'm actually saying that there is a lot of countries who already have services quite on the same level. At least they're moving towards that way. Even for example, country like Ukraine. Ukraine actually even has the mobile application already, which Estonia still don't have. We're moving on that direction. And this is currently under the development, but Ukraine already has that application. So a lot of countries that are starting today can also skip a lot of steps that we did, and just jump all the way to already mobile solutions. And we call them one-stop shops, so that you get access to all of your services in one platform. But
it's just obvious,
actually,
right?
yeah, I would actually explain you the process. I needed to update also my identity card last year. And I didn't remember that it was already expiring, and then I just was like, okay, it's gonna expire in the next 2 months, so I need to update. And then I was sitting in my office, and I went to the nearest photo booth or something that you can take a photo of yourself. So I went there, and then they automatically emailed, of course, the photo, the passport photo that it did. And then I could already start the application process online to my new identity
on the spot.
card. Yes, so I just I opened my computer, it was all done. So I applied for the new ID card, and actually it took me 3 or 4 business days that they already sent that my card is ready to pick up, and then we have a very cool solution there as well. I still needed to go there in person to pick it up to the police and border guard board, but I can already at home take the queue number.
The number is valid. Okay.
No. I mean if you have to wait in a queue, to pick up your card, and then already I was in a queue while still being and enjoying my morning coffee at home, and then I saw there's only 20 people left that are waiting in a queue there, and then I took a taxi and I was on my way to the police and border guard board, and as soon as I opened the door, they called my number. And then I just went there. I had my ID card in my hands, and I walked out, and my taxi was still waiting. And I was like, okay, bye.
Okay. So from end to end, how many business days was that, from beginning to end?
I think it was 3.5 or 4 business days.
And I don't know if it's a direct comparison, but like I said, I did my passport renewal. that was several months from the time that I started, and I had to show up in person and fill out a lot of documentation, and
Mm.
I did have to take a picture, and then I had to validate my identity elsewhere. So I think it was like a couple months from beginning to end, but with a lot of headaches because I did show up places where they turned me away, or I stayed on the phone to get into a queue, but then maybe they lost my line in my place in the queue. So, in terms of, I always think through the lens of customer experience from a startup perspective, right? You're always trying to deliver the best customer experience to your users. Yours sounds 100 times better than what I had to go through.
Well, we have the same process for the passport as well, like the ID card, so that you can also apply for this online and do all the stuff online. And the reason why we don't have to go to different offices is because Estonia is using like this kind of concept called once only. So as soon as you have like submitted some part of your information, then it's already there, and the government is not allowed to ask you any information twice. So when I have added my information about my yeah, my residency where I live, or again my phone number or anything, it's already in the system, and the government agencies can need to know basis exchange this information if they have contracts between each other. So it's actually like not even legal to ask for information two times, because that would be already duplication of information, which we never allow. So it has to be as easy that we don't really ask people. And when I was also in Canada, we met a lot of different deputy ministers, and we discussed about this, that when it comes to the mindset, our mindset has always been that you actually are doing a very big favor to your citizens if you let them to live their life and you don't bother them, but you let them to live their life, and
Obviously.
then this kind of collaboration with the government just has to be something that is like pleasant, and they don't call you all the time, or you don't even have to think about the government services because there's happening somewhere in the background,
Yeah.
and it has to be like very simple when it comes to providing access to the services.
Annette, the fact that you have to say that out loud is kind of funny because you know that it's not like that is not the mentality. In fact, I would make the argument that it's the opposite mentality where probably for maintaining slash creating more jobs, there's more efficiency built into the system. And so they want you to like grind against the system, I think, to a certain extent. But I think that's an amazing policy of no duplication of information. The government's not allowed to ask you for the same information twice. That means it's their responsibility to warehouse that information securely and in a centralized way so that everyone kind of just has to give their critical information once and then, don't ask me again because this is unproductive. And another thing, a theme that I'm hearing from Estonia is freedom is the ultimate good here, right? Like the more freedom you provide businesses, the more they thrive. The more freedom you provide your citizens and, away from excess bureaucracy and, all of that, the more they can go on and live their lives. And that's what citizens are supposed to do in a country. So I just think
If
it's a
you
great
think
mindset to have.
if you think about also the citizen's perspective, like a citizen is also an entrepreneur in a lot of cases. So if you actually if it comes to the economic system, they provide much more of an economical value for the state if you let them to do their stuff and not having to go to the public institutions and fill their documents and write the papers and do their taxes for a couple of
Obviously.
months. Because our tax declaration took me 30 seconds last year, so it was all pre-filled, 30 seconds it was done. And I could spend that time that in a lot of different other countries, people go travel to a government agency, fill in the papers, trying to find their, kind of constant and their information. And I could actually spend this time on like creating an economical value that benefits to the states, creating a new company, coming up with a new idea, research, I don't know, whatever market I might work at. So especially, I think that's the mindset. It's just like the more time people have to do and deal with the things that they love to do, the better it is for everybody, and also the better it is for the state, because it's also, I mean,
I
even
fully agree.
climate. Because if you also travel to the government agency, CO2, I mean, that's also
A hundred
important.
percent. I know I can't agree with you more. And so what you guys are doing is really important, and it's as simple as showing what's possible, right? We don't need all of this excess, paperwork and process and stuff. And it brings me to a bigger question, actually, a more consequential question from a geopolitical perspective. Countries like Estonia, and I think you can name a few others, like Portugal comes to mind, who are becoming more open borders, friendly to entrepreneurs, like come live here, digital nomad lifestyle. I know there's some in Central America, South America. Now, you guys, as startups, as upstart countries in a way, are going to start attracting citizens away from these countries that don't change, don't adapt fast enough. And I'm just wondering, like I think that'll be the natural byproduct of the work you're doing and the innovation you're bringing. I imagine that's something that you're aware of. What do you see happening in the next 10, 20 years on a geopolitical perspective? And where are people going to migrate towards countries like Estonia, or are countries like Canada and the United States going to have to evolve to retain their citizens more? Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's not even about that people would be, I would say, dependent on, or maybe dependent is not the right word to use that. So that I don't think people would be location independent in the future. So again, seeing from my friends, so that we travel so much, again, that we're changing our locations where we are, where we live, based on weather, based on the ecosystem where you operate in, like which sector you work at. So there's a lot of different factors that are very, very important. And I would say that now also, as after Corona, there was a lot of things that also COVID changed drastically. There is a lot of ways to, remote work is like everyday thing for a lot of companies already. You have a chance to, I don't know, spend 2 months on working remotely. So I think, yeah, where we are moving to is very much, again, that people would like to have a freedom. I think freedom is the right word to describe this. So that if I decide today that I don't like to be here, that this environment does not inspire me anymore, I can back my bags and I can go. And this is what you want to have. It's that you have the chance to do it. But when it comes to countries that don't provide people, access to remote working, or also just that every time that they need to do something, they need to show up somewhere in person, so they feel stuck. And then they
Yep.
move to somewhere where actually they don't have to be stuck. But again, they can, travel around and do whatever they want to. So I think my generation, of our generation,
Our
sorry,
generation.
uh, our generation is very much looking for freedom in a lot of ways. Because we really, really want to, just kind of be able to do whatever comes into our mind. And
Totally.
I think it's the same for also, for entrepreneurs, but also to just human beings. So you go somewhere where you feel that you have time, and you have the environment that actually supports you to be free, that you can breathe. And if the country X does not allow you to do it, you're gonna go.
Then
and
exit.
and and that's, yeah, that's why I've been saying, like, to a lot of countries as well, like, you need to come up with solutions like this and attract people with your environment,
Oh
the
yeah.
infrastructure that you provide, and really listen to what people want to, or where they want to live, and include them also to the process of like also to understand it better, what are their needs. Then you also need to talk to them, and that's how simple it is to.
It really is that simple, and it's what we repeat to our startup founders every day. The most important thing you can be doing is talking to your customers, your potential customers, and learning what are their irritants, what are their problems,
Mhm.
what can you do to solve them. And this idea of countries thinking and acting like startups, I think, is a revolutionary idea, and it could make just such a difference. And before we get off this topic, I feel like we could spend hours, but I won't dwell too much. But other than the ease of doing business with the government, that's one factor for me that you have to consider. Another one is So you receive government services, you pay for those government services. And there's that ratio of what you pay in taxes to what you get, and the quality of the services you get. And I know that a lot of people in Canada are, there's a lot of rabble rousing right now, that are not satisfied with that ratio of like what we pay for what we get. And a lot of people are like, oh, I want to leave Canada, especially the entrepreneurs who are very freedom minded, like you mentioned. So, how is Estonia from that perspective? I know we're going a little bit off topic, but I'm just curious. Like, the services are great, but do you guys charge like 90% taxes? Like, how does it work?
And the tax level is also actually very, very low. And even when we think about, for example, like the entrepreneur perspective here too, actually the corporate tax level is zero. So mhm. So you only pay taxes when you take out the dividends from your company, and then it's 20%. But
20% on
besides
dividends.
this,
Got it.
yeah. But my income tax is it varies on your income, but it's from like 20% to 25, I think, or something like this. So it's actually not a big level. Like if I'm thinking about like how much I pay for my salary, the taxes are not like that big compared to a lot of other countries. And Estonia has been number one country when it comes to tax competitiveness for
Mhm.
many years already in that side as well. And especially again, like if you have things working online, for the government is also way cheaper, obviously,
Of
because
course.
you don't have to pay for the people that are sitting in the office and just keep
And the
your
paper and the fax
exactly.
machines and
Yeah, and we've been actually even calculating that in a year, Estonia saves the same amount of paper like Eiffel Tower when you put all the papers for one. And so
it's
yeah.
so ironic. It's so ironic because countries will talk about how it's important to protect the environment, and yet their very practices, their business as usual, is harmful to the environment. Whereas the incremental inputs in Estonia's economy is electricity, essentially. Like, it's all digital, right? So, you're really making it attractive to move to Estonia and to do business in Estonia. Um, Now, okay, thanks for that. Now, I want to talk about the program that you specifically work for, because this is much more startup focused. Accelerate Estonia. I think this is something that a lot of Canadian startups need to know about. And I've already started sending some of our startups your way. A lot of them texted me after I posted on LinkedIn, and they're like,
Mhm.
Mike, how do I get in touch with this Accelerate Estonia program? Like, I'm having trouble here. Like, we're getting blocked at all sides by regulation and this and that. And tell us what Accelerate Estonia is, and why startups in Canada could be interested in it.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you for the post already, because we have received already a couple of companies that have applied to us, so that's a great
My
start.
pleasure.
But anyway, so what we do is that we're actually on a lookout for companies, like you said, that would like to run their innovation, but then there are legal obstacles that are totally blocking their solution to come on to the market. And I always like to bring also very concrete cases, like when we think about like global companies that have been facing legal obstacles. It's also about like Uber. When Uber came to market, there were a lot of legislation that needed to be changed to allow them to operate in the market. I know that in a lot of countries they actually even operated against the law, like that they were
Yep.
it was not legal to actually operate in a market. So I think here in Estonia we needed to change a lot of laws for this as well, but it was a very quick process. And if we would have existed back in that time, then Uber definitely would have been our client. Because what we do is that basically we are looking for not only like a specific company itself, but a company that is going to open a brand new market in a way. So the brand new market meaning that when their solution would be allowed to operate in a market, then they would also attract a lot of other companies also, just come and launch their solution here. And when it comes to also a lot of new technology, sometimes this technology is not even tested in the market yet. So we don't even really know how the entire market either will react for this solution, or also how this solution, how safe it is for people to use. So in a lot of cases, we need to run also different kind of pilots. so that we're doing pilot with these companies for 6 months. So in a nutshell, what you need to have, or like what kind of companies we're looking for, is that you need to have a public sector ask, so that you can name, or just tell us that there is either this legal obstacle that is existing that is blocking you, or there is not a single legislation or a legal system that would actually even allow you to operate. When it comes to AI technology, or a lot of also deep tech side, there is a lot of things that we didn't even know when we created like legislation system like long time ago. And right now these solutions would like to come to the market, but there is no regulations that would just kind of regulate how they can work. So either there are blocks from the system, or there is not a single legislation or regulation that is created in a way. So these are the companies, so they can apply to our program, and then of course it is very, very essential to Estonia that we're actually solving some kind of problem. But hopefully when it comes to new solutions, new technologies, that they're not just random things in the market, but they really come with like a problem solving attitude as well. And then what we provide is we provide Estonia as a test bed, so that they can come and test their solution here in this environment. And then we have a concrete data, the concrete data that is saying, okay, what we saw here was that this solution, we run the pilot, and this impacted the behaviors of people. This is how many people actually use this, and then also the economical benefits, and a lot of data that we can use, also get the decision makers to really sign the last deal, that they're saying, okay, we're going to change that regulation, or we're going to create the new regulation for this sector. And then it opens a brand new market. And like the next step from there is, of course, that we try to also influence the global policymakers on the EU level, and also maybe working with some other governments abroad as well. And we already have some of the cases that something started here, and then we also managed to kind of also influence the EU policy making processes as well. And Estonia, like we discussed before,
Wow.
is part of the EU. So that also means that if you open a market here, then it's also easier for you to, access the EU market as well. So really like to be the test bed for things that have been illegal. So our kind of, I would say, slogan that we use is that let's make illegal things legal together.
Just wow. Like, it's so obvious when you say it, but no other country is doing something like this, right? You guys are really at the forefront. You're leading the pack. It's kind of like the way it usually works is the private sector invents things, and then it's a new market, so it's unregulated, so it's not technically legal. And then there's just a lot of friction once again, because then you have to figure that out, and it can be years in the making of like getting regulators to come up with a framework to regulate it. And it's usually by, if you look at the crypto industry, I know you said that you're not a particular fan, but I use it as an example because it actually highlights this well. It emerged first, and because it was unregulated, a lot of bad things happened. People got screwed over, people lost money, people made money, etc. And in the current system, we wait for bad things like that to happen, and then we say, oh, now we have to create laws around this because look what happened. Look at this case study. But what Estonia is essentially doing is trying to be proactive with respect to regulation and saying, hey, we'll come to us if you've got this new industry that you want to open up. We will test it in this bubble that is, Estonia, and then we will take the results and we will advocate or disadvocate in other jurisdictions to create frameworks where they can operate as well. It's brilliant. So I have like a specific, so in the case of Uber, let's use Uber as an example. I think it's a great one. Does Uber come in and test it across all of Estonia, or are there special zones geographically delimited that it's like test Uber in this zone here before rolling it out to the entire country? Is that how it works?
So it very much depends on the case. When it comes to something that is maybe a very new technology, such as like drones, for example, uh, there is going to be. It's not part of our like program, but some of the things need to be tested in a controlled environment, obviously. I mean, also
Yeah.
when you think about like robots or also self-driving cars, you can't, test them, I don't know, in a very busy traffic in the middle of Toronto or Ottawa. Like it's not very safe to do it. So for some of the solutions, of course, it needs like a very, controlled environment. But with a lot of things also, that's totally okay already. And it doesn't even have to be something that is, like a self-driving car or like just, driving something in the real environment in a way. But also, I don't know, like one of the examples maybe I will also I will talk about. So when it comes to like the medical sector, uh, in Estonia we can get access to our medicines prescriptions by our identity card. So you just go to the pharmacy, you hand it over to the pharmacist, and then they will put this to the computer with a reader, and they can see what kind of prescriptive medicals you are like medicines you're allowed to buy. And very simple. They see the list there, and then they will tell you, okay, we see that there is one prescription. Would you like to buy it out? And then they will just, give it over to you. You pay and you go. But I feel like this is also a very old school solution. In Estonia, there is a lot of problems that there is less and less people going to study to become pharmacists. And there are two regulations in Estonia in this system is that every time that you want to buy a medical, then you need to have a pharmacist consulting you. And then also it's regulated the times when the pharmacies are opened. But there could be also cases when in the middle of the night you have a kid at home and they have a fever. Or let's say that yourself, you have a wisdom teeth, like a massive pain here,
Yeah.
and you actually realize that you don't have a painkiller at home. What do?
And there are no
You
pharmacists
either,
awake at that time,
yeah,
let's say.
exactly. And then you either go to the emergency center or you call the emergency to your home. I mean, if you feel like I'm gonna die, it's too much. So one of our also I would say experimental teams that we currently have is a self-service pharmacy. So that there is like a robot, like just a self-service, like a robot's delivery, like a box. Where you go there, you insert your ID card, and then with your ID card, again, you see all this kind of prescriptions. And then you can also choose, I don't know, a painkiller or something that you want to buy. And then it's super simple that you just pay there, and then you can request also a consultation from the pharmacist. But currently, the solution is not allowed to be here in the market because of these two reasons. First of all, the opening times of the pharmacist, and secondly, also that there has to be a pharmacist who is like, consulting you when you buy a medicine. And we want to get rid of these two things there. And if we will get rid of these things there, we will actually be able to provide the self-service pharmacies across Estonia, also in the small areas where we'll never have even a working pharmacist there. And also most of cases, like the pharmacies are even closed on Saturday and Sunday, where people actually have time to go to the pharmacy. And currently we're only testing this solution in one of the cities in Estonia, just to get the results to see whether people actually would go there or how they feel, how the elderly people feel about like going actually talking to the computer when they go and buy their medicines. So that's just one of the cases like we currently work on, and then we try to collect as much as data and then to understand really again if there was a need for this, how many people use this, how this is actually changing the behavior, how many people come in the middle of the night to buy their medicines. Like it's, a lot of things there.
Yeah. So that all makes a lot of sense. I'm guessing. So where do you draw the line? Obviously, the other people who represent the status quo would say something like, "Well, these regulations are in place to protect people, protect the population, to prevent bad things from happening." So, what's their counter argument? Like, will will Estonia, for example, I think there are like severe laws against ethical codes, maybe against human cloning, like something like that. So will you guys get into like crazy far out technological advances like that, or maybe you can't talk about it, but like how do you see it?
No, I think it's always important to again ask as many different kind of groups and people to also advise us. So we of course also when we do the changes, we ask a lot of unions that are responsible for that sector to also give their like kind of opinion and say, if we would have a solution like this working, what do you think about this? Would this change your like behavior, or you as a pharmacist? What do you feel? Do you think this is gonna steal your job, or do you think that you actually can now work and really with cases that need your kind of expertise and everything? So it's it's very, very important that you include as many groups of people also in the discussion
Yeah,
when you want to launch something. So of course, the security of our people and their well-being is the number one thing. And of course, also before we even allow these kind of change in legislation system, we want to be sure that this is not going to affect people to, I don't know, go to the self-service pharmacy and buy 20 different doses
exactly.
of different medicines and then kill themselves. I mean,
Exactly.
these are important things that we also need to, secure first before something bad happens. But I feel like a lot of countries are like so afraid of testing new things because they think that, okay, there could be consequences and something very bad to happen. But if this is again in a very quick way piloted, and then you see actually how this is impacting the system or the environment or behaviors of people, and you have the data that's actually like a great proof, and then you can decide as a decision maker whether you want to allow these things to happen or no. So with a lot of things like we need testing before, and this is exactly what we try to do with a lot of new things. But of course, always keeping in mind that people's well-being and again the
That's right.
opinion is like very, very important. So you can't cross the line, but it has to again make jump to something better, not worse. And
That's
this is
right.
where we kind of try to find the balance there, that if it actually is not going to harm anyone, and it makes a lot of people's like life much easier, then why
Right.
shouldn't we?
Yeah, so if I can summarize, so what we're looking for are solutions that their innovations will bring added productivity while protecting the downside risk of hurting people. So we have to make sure that it's safe. And in that process, you're consulting all kinds of groups, all kinds of interest groups that may or may not be affected by, said policy changes. So yeah, and I think just the act of testing it is the important part, like of re-questioning ourselves on how we do things. That's, I think, what drives innovation forward. I think simply, I like using the via negativa kind of approach. By subtracting, by taking off barriers, you probably do more good than by adding more on, because legislation just becomes super opaque and complicated, and after a number of years irrelevant and redundant maybe after a while. So we have to constantly be questioning why certain laws are in place, and are they hampering our ability to innovate.
Yeah, because a lot of laws are created again like hundred of years ago in some of the more old democracy systems, and like did we know our did anybody had even idea that we're gonna have like ChatGPT creating like helping you to
No.
create emails or doing things like we didn't know these things before. So how can we still operate in a legislation system that is 100 years old that had no idea what is happening today?
Yeah,
So I feel like legislation systems should never stop innovation, but like push innovation and be like actually as fast as innovation. Otherwise, like I think actually the crypto example was a very good one, because again, a lot of people were really, really suffering because this was totally unregulated market, and then a lot of people lost their money, and there was a lot of confusion. So I feel like this is also one of the sectors that really needs concrete regulations and
absolutely.
understanding like how things actually work. so that these bad boys would not actually make us to also lose our money or just kind of suffer because we use that solution. So that's why, and even when it comes to regulations, a lot of people feel like, okay, regulations are very bad things. We're like super afraid of regulations, and they're used to make it like things also
Right.
much more difficult. But also with the case of the AI can also cause a lot of
Absolutely.
trouble. And that's why also I think EU has been a great example that like also right now we have the AI very much regulated, but also it took way too much time. I would say 2 3 years that we actually came up with something. So that's why I feel like we need to foster the changes much faster than they are today.
Yeah, you're so right. And it is important to remember regulation's there for a reason. It's not inherently bad or good. It's there to protect people from any actions that individuals or companies might be taking in the world, and governments for that matter. Um, what's really important though is to get the nuance of that regulation. It's like, when should it be applied, and to what degree and in what circumstances. And I think that's what you guys are trying to do. You're trying to go through on a much more micro level to understand, well, in certain contexts this makes sense, in others it doesn't. So let's let this innovation run, and you're building a framework for that. Um,
And there are of course also cases that that you actually run the pilot and you understand like, no, we're not going to change the legislation because there is too much risk. I can't give up
exactly.
any give out any concrete examples in terms of this, but I'm
Mhm.
sure even around the world, like when a solution have come to the market and maybe there has been changes in the legislation system, and then you are like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a trouble now.
But it's
So
important. But it's important to test those limits, I think, and to have like a concrete answer as opposed to going on conjecture and like what we think might happen. It's good to have the data.
exactly.
Shoot, I was going to ask you a question about. I forgot, but yeah. Okay, yeah. So no, I forgot. But what would be on, like, what's Estonia's roadmap for the next? Let's look even further out. What's the vision
Mhm.
for the country in like 100 years? Do you want it to be like a place where every single major company has like an innovation department in the world, where startups automatically apply for e-residency because they're going to launch like at least an Estonian branch to do some rapid testing? Like, how do you guys see it?
I think the longer vision really much is that when a country or not the country, but when an entrepreneur or a person would think about like, okay, I have this amazing idea and I wanna start running this, then the first idea would be like, okay, I'm gonna go to Estonia because they actually provide me the very best platform and support also from the government to do it. So to really, attract the brains, and I think we have had this kind of already a goal for many years that we want to be the place that really attracts the brain here, so that people can come here and work on their amazing ideas. And we want to be this kind of a dreamland for entrepreneurs to really go and dream big, so that to show that there are no limits when it comes to doing innovation or just trying something crazy. And we want to continue to be the change makers, I would say, and the forerunners of change making process as itself as well. And I think in the future as well, like even like our e-government strategy is fully based on the proactiveness, so that we
Mhm.
as a government or as a country won't want to be one step ahead of you. So that we provide you the services that you can't even come up by yourself, like to think about it, you actually need this kind of support. It actually comes to a lot of things. For example, like even when you give a birth here, then as soon as like your baby's birth has been registered in a hospital, uh, automatically already you receive an email from the state that will ask which one of the parents is going to stay at home with the kids and where are we going to send you the money. Because right now you are a parent, so you need money, you need to get like the child benefits, so congratulations, which account you want to use. So to really like that, I don't have to think about this, that okay, I'm in this group, that I would actually be able to get this kind of support from the government, or either it's a financial support or the new, I don't know, courses or anything, just opportunities that the government would provide me for my taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
We want to inform them on the background already so that they don't have to think about this. And then if we give them, like I said before, the freedom to not having to think about this, and automatically they think about the crazy ideas because they have more time to do it.
Yeah. Now,
So it's about taking this kind of, the very annoying hustling, very annoying like things away from their table and actually giving space for dealing with things that actually matter.
yeah, I've got an idea for you guys to make more money, like as a
Yeah,
business model.
shoot it.
Offer your kind of platform as a service to other countries. Like you've built out the infrastructure. I know that the biggest issue there is going to be security and information sovereignty and things like this, but if you guys have that framework, I am certain that there are certainly smaller countries that want to modernize, maybe bigger countries that want to do a better job at retaining their citizens by offering them
Mm.
higher quality services, cheaper services, so they don't have to tax as much, for example. Have you guys ever considered that? Is it even in the realm of possibility?
Well, I think it's more about that. What we try to do is that we try to help the other countries to, develop their own services and really do that with the help from like also from our private sector companies. Because again, and something that is very, very essential here is that everything that we have done has been done together with the private sector. So we call it like a PPP model, so that they have developed a lot of things for the government. And so what they do now is that they're also developing these things to other governments, which means that their entities are still here, so they pay taxes here, which is also very beneficial for us when they can, provide their services. So that as a government, in a way, that it would be a little bit more difficult because we are actually buying all these solutions in from the private sector. And this was actually one of the findings that I got from Canada. When we had a lot of meetings, that I felt like one thing that really needs to change in the government is to understand that you don't have to do everything in-house. Like a lot of governments around the world are wasting too much of their time on trying to attract people to work for the government who would develop things and who would come up with
Yeah.
like this or like program them things. That's not necessary, because these things are like a long time ago already implemented and developed by IT leaders that are working in the private sector. And then you
Yeah.
can just have
100%.
the deals with these private sector companies and let them to develop the services to you. And then you will also boost the economic system because they have a customer as a government and they pay still taxes to you later. It's like, a big round. So you boost also. Yeah. So I never recommend anybody to think about like, I'm a government sector, I know how things work, we'll do it ourselves. You're not the smartest people on the planet, because the private sector people actually have ideas and experience, and they are running the world.
And the greatest incentive, right? Like incentives run the world. It's not the public sector employee, the bureaucrat, who's going to come up with the best possible IT solution to run an e-country. I think someone in the private sector, like you said, would have a much higher chance if they've got like a good incentive to do it. Listen, Anett, it's been a fantastic conversation. This is super stimulating to me. Like I said, I could chat for hours with you, but I think we could stop it there. Maybe I'll have you back on for another episode, a follow up on some interesting things that are happening, and hopefully between now and then, I will have sent you more startups, more Canadian startups who want to do business in Estonia through the program.
Absolutely, and thanks for really having me here. And like, it's always interesting to also get the perspectives from the other side. But definitely, we are very happy to welcome everybody here in Estonia. And doesn't even mean that. I mean, you can apply to Accelerate Estonia. But of course, if you don't face legal obstacles, but you still want to operate in the European market and find more customers here, e-residency solution is also a great solution, so that you can still get access to also the EU market. And I really do hope that in the future we will understand, and a lot of countries will understand, that the one thing people want is freedom, And if you don't provide freedom to your people, they're going to go somewhere else, that to a country that actually provides them freedom in a lot of ways. So that's going to remain one of the key words. But I'm really hoping that next time we can have a chat, then I would be back in Canada, because I really, really enjoyed my time there.
Well, actually, the chances are I may be in Estonia for the next chat because
Oh,
I definitely, ever since we last spoke and after today, it's piqued my curiosity and I want to get to know the country. Obviously, beyond the e-citizenship stuff, I want to see the culture. I want to see the architecture. I want to talk to the people. I'm sure you can introduce me to a lot of your friends and stuff. So
absolutely. And I mean, the weather is basically the same as in Canada. It's going to get also very cold here in the next few months. So
I'm
I
used
don't
to
think
it.
that's a problem. We have an amazing Christmas market here. So you're
Okay.
also welcome to come even in December when we have very nice. Everybody, my friends that have been visiting me here and turning the Christmas time are saying like the Tallinn Old Town Christmas market is like a real fairy tale. So you got to
Oh
come and
yeah.
see that.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'll definitely do my best. So thanks again, Annette, and have a great one. Keep it up.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.